Before we start, we have a security announcement. Thank you.
Investigator Cliff Benson, Sacramento Enforcement Unit, today for the security briefing. Should we have a disturbance? Myself will address any disturbances that take place in the audience. If necessary, the President of the Board stop meeting, follow recess. If there's anything more than a simple disturbance out there and we need to evacuate the room, there's one exit up here behind the board members. Go through those doors, another set of doors that leads you outside. You follow that straight out to the outside of the parking lot. We want to ask that any kind of disturbance resulting in physical altercation, everybody moves away from us. Don't come to us, move away from us. If you have any questions?
Thank you very much. Well, good morning, everyone. With our apologies, because I am from Los Angeles, I was shown what Sacramento traffic can be like. And we got a little bit lost and a little bit befuddled, but we are here. Well, good morning. Thank you for joining us at this Dental Board of California meeting. I'm Dr. Alan Felsenfeld and serve as the president of the board. Today is Thursday, October 12, 2023, and this board meeting is being held in person. This is an official meeting of the business meeting of the Dental Board of California. Depending on the number of people who would like to testify on a particular agenda item, a 2-minute total time limit may be imposed. We ask all speakers to please stay on topic and not repeat testimony already provided. If you agree with the testimony provided, you may state your name and that you are in support of any comments previously provided. If a time limit is determined to be necessary, please keep your comments within that time limit. I would now like to call the meeting to order and ask the board secretary to please call the roll. Dr. Larin.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Lily Larin. I'm board secretary. I will now call the roll. Chan present. Chan present. Felsenfeld.
Felsenfeld here.
Felsenfeld present. Ford absent. Larin present. McKenzie absent. Medina
present.
Medina present. Molina
present.
Molina present. Olage absent. Pacheco
here.
Pacheco present. Thakur
here.
Thakur present. You here. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Dr. Larin. We will now move on to agenda item number 2, public comment on items not on the agenda. Before we open public comment on matters not on the agenda, I would like to remind individuals making comments to not discuss pending complaints, pending licensing applications, or pending disciplinary actions that may later come before the board for a decision. Such discussions are considered ex parte communications, as they could provide information to the board members that is outside of the record in violation of the Administrative Procedure Act. Such discussions could create a conflict and lead to a board decision being challenged in Superior Court. Accordingly, if an individual makes comments on a pending disciplinary matter, the individual will be interrupted. The board can, of course, receive comments regarding the board's processes in general, but it cannot receive comments on specific case circumstances when the decision is still pending. In addition, public comments should address the board as a whole and not individual members. Please be aware that public comment during this agenda item should provide information to the board members, but it is not a discussion between the board members and the public. The only action board members can take right now is to listen to comments and decide whether they want a future agenda item on that topic. Though this may seem at times like the board members are not being responsive, following these guidelines is critical to ensure that the rules of the Open Meeting Act are followed to avoid compromising the speaker's goals or the board's mission. In the interest of time, as we've done in the past, we would like to request that public comments not repeat statements made by a prior commenter. If you're in support of a statement made by a prior individual and your comments have already been made, you may state your name and or association if you wish, and your support for the previous commenter. Legislative hearings regularly use this practice as it is a good way to ensure that we can hear from everybody today. Are there any public comments on items not on the agenda? Seeing none. Item number 3 is not going to be discussed today. It's being tabled for a later meeting. So we're going to go right to item number 4. Okay, we need, all right, please identify, I know who you are, but please identify. So you want to give us an update on why we're tabling item 3? Please.
This is our regulatory counsel, Christy Shields.
I know
She's
Christy Shields.
explaining why we need to table the agenda item concerning the regulations, the proposed regulations implementing AB 107.
So for items 3A and B, I had a meeting with the Office of Administrative Law on Tuesday, October 10th, for another client, another board client in the department who's implementing a text proposal that's virtually identical to the one that you're proposing. And at that meeting, the Office of Administrative Law expressed concern about the way the text was drafted and the eligibility requirements. And I made all the arguments I thought were reasonable to defend the position, and they wouldn't agree with it. So the client withdrew their package and is modifying their text. We haven't settled on what those changes are going to be yet, so I don't have any text changes I can bring today to you. So I'm requesting that the board table items 3A and 3B for a future board meeting, and I'd request a motion to that effect.
Thank you, Ms. Shields. On advice at council and with due respect to your comments, we will table this and consider it as you have better information for us for the next meeting.
So
We need a motion.
could
We
I
don't-
get a,
do we need to
yes,
motion?
Table something?
yes, because it's on the
All right.
agenda and we give people the opportunity for comment if they
That'll be
came
fine.
here to discuss
All
that
right, so
item.
at this point, we would like a motion to table item number 3 to a future meeting date.
Correct.
Pacheco, motion to table the item.
Thank you, Ms. Pacheco and Dr. Yu. All right. Is there any board member comment on this? Seeing none. Public comment on the tabling of this item? Seeing none. We'll have a vote. Dr. Lorin on tabling item number 3 to a future meeting date.
3A and 3B, or just 3?
Just on the table, the motion is not
Okay.
either 3A or 3B. It's a motion to table the
Okay.
item to a future meeting.
Motion to table item 3 for a
No,
future
thank
meeting.
you.
I'm repeating the motion. Okay, Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Bellsville, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Forge? Absent. Larin? Yes. McKinsey? Absent. Medina?
Medina, yes.
Yes. Molina?
Molina, aye.
Molina, aye. Olage, absent. Pacheco?
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Thakur? Thakur, aye. And you?
UI.
You, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. Ms. Shields?
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Bruggeman, you're going to stay with us here.
Yes, I'm going to stay here for item 4, and
All right?
Jessica Olney will
We're
join
now
me.
going to move on to, for the record, we're going to move on to item agenda 4A, discussion and possible action on legislative proposal to amend B&P Business Professions Code Section 1647.3 regarding moderate sedation permit requirements. Go ahead, Mr. Bruggeman. and good
Thank you,
morning.
President Felsenfeld. The specific proposal language can be found on pages 20 through 22 of the meeting materials, and these are also available online at the board's website. Specifically, the changes that we are discussing today can be found. Any additions to the text are going to be in double underline. Any deletions of the text will be in double strike through. And this is specific to section 1647.3 of the Business and Professions Code. And I just want to summarize briefly the specific changes and the need for those changes, and then Jessica and I can address any questions that you might have on the specifics of the proposal.
Please do.
In this specific section of the code, it's covering the training with respect to moderate sedation, specifically that the requirements of 20 cases of administration of moderate sedation to patients as a prerequisite for obtaining the permit. And in review of the language and in consultation with other program staff, there was some plausible enforcement issues identified with respect to training programs, standalone training programs that are in place to provide the experience to get the 20 cases that you would need to obtain this permit. And there are some potential mismatches with respect to the training personnel in these courses that they may not be individuals licensed to practice dentistry in the state of California with the associated permits that are required under law. And additionally, that there's a mismatch between the statutory obligation that there be a one-to-one dentist to patient supervisory relationship compared to the 4-to-1 patient to dentist supervisory relationship. And I apologize, I'm not a practicing dentist. I may have the language imprecise here, but the difference in those ratios is concerning and can be construed as professional misconduct under 1682 if the 4-to-1 relationship permitted under the guidelines is permitted through these training courses, it could still be a violation of the law. And so the proposed changes to 1647.3 are an attempt to close those loopholes and ensure that these standalone training programs meet the same criteria and obligations that you would find if those individuals were obtaining these training within the approved dental colleges and other programs that the board regulates in the state of California. Jessica, have I missed anything here?
No, not at all.
Thank you. So we are asking the board to move to approve the legislative proposal as outlined in pages 20 through 22 of the meeting materials. And again, the specific changes that we're talking about today are in the double underline for addition and the double strike through for deletions.
So what we're trying to do is get it to the point where it's all consistent with what we do in California and California law.
Absolutely.
Simple as that, right? Okay, I have a simple mind some days, and this would be one of them. All right, so is there any board member comment on the resolution? Seeing none, do we have a resolution? We actually should have a motion to do that then.
Pacheco?
We need a motion.
Yes. Motion to revise, include in the board's sunset review report, the legislative proposal to amend Business and Professions Code 1647.3 regarding MS permit requirements.
And that was what you're asking for, Mr. Bruggeman. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
And is there a second? Dr. Thakur, good morning. All right, Dr. Thakur would second that. Ms. Pacheco moves that. Is there any board member discussion on the motion? I see none. Is there any public comment on the motion? Good morning, Ms. Okai.
Good morning. Tukas Okai from the California Dental Association. We just wanted to highlight that these sedation training programs are to meet an unmet need because of the relatively few accredited dental schools that offer standalone MS training programs for dentists who have been practicing for several years and wish to expand their practice to the administration of moderate sedation. So we encourage the board to also either within the motion or in separate activities to explore the lack of appropriate training programs that are available if this were to pass and how that would impact moderate sedation availability and training within California and the impacts this would have also on SB 501 and if it would need to be included within an amendment in the legislative rather than the regulatory amendment that is being requested.
Point of information, this is
Yeah.
a legislative proposal.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Oh, for sunset, okay. So just to consider that as well and the impacts and possible unintended consequences.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Dr. Lirin? No, all right, no, no more. Dr. Lirin, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I want to make a comment. Can I do that? Yes?
Yes, you may, of course.
On page 22, I just had a question here. Number 3, for procedures performed under paragraph 3 of subdivision, the procedure shall be performed under the direct supervision of California licensed dentist who holds a board-issued general anesthesia and moderate sedation permit with a pediatric endorsement issued by the board. I would just like to see if we can add the California Dental Board, because it could be any board. I mean, what board? I mean, do we have to repeat that? Should we repeat it, the word California Dental Board?
think
Or
Mr.
The way the statutes are constructed, the use of the word board in this context refers to the California Dental Board, or the Dental Board of California, excuse me.
I don't know, it just seems to me like it would be, I don't know. If you think it all seems like it's fine, I mean, we can leave it like that.
It's
but
inherent within the structure.
What board? It doesn't really, I mean, yes, but it could be the Michigan Board. It could be.
Point is well taken, but this does relate to the California Board
Okay, good. I just want to
requirements.
clarify that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other, we're finished with public comment. Are there any other board comments before we take a vote? So we are ready to vote. Dr. Lorin, if you will be kind enough to call the roll.
Should I repeat the motion?
Yeah, please do.
Move to revise and include the Board Sunset Review Report, the legislative proposal to amend Business and Professions Code Section 1647.3 regarding MS permit requirements. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Larin, aye. McKenzie? Absent. Medina?
Medina, I.
Medina, aye. Molina?
Molina, I.
Molina, aye. Olage, absent. Pacheco?
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Thakur? Thakur, aye. You?
You, aye.
You, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. Mr. Bruggeman, Solney, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We're now ready to move on to item number 5, which is discussion and possible action on the board's 2024 Sunset Review Report. We're going to ask Dr. Montez to give us a little introduction to this and explain what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we did it, and what we expect from y'all.
Good morning, Dr. Felsenfeld and board members. Thank you. We are now at the heart of this special board meeting. By statute, specifically Business and Professions Code Section 1601.1, the Dental Board of California has the authority to operate until January 1st, 2025. This sunset date provision is applied to all Department of Consumer Affairs boards and bureaus on a staggered basis so that the California legislature can review each entity and its operation and adjust that entity's laws as it sees fit. This is called the sunset review process, and the board last went through this review in the 2018-2019 timeframe. So, of course, this starts with the board preparing a sunset report to submit to the legislature. It's going to summarize actually the last 5 years. Because of COVID, we were given a pass as well as some other boards. And so we actually have 5 years of data that we will be reporting on. So the board staff has worked very hard to put together a report, a draft report for you. This follows a template that is supplied to us by the legislature. Once the draft report is reviewed by all of you today, we will take back any suggestions, make any edits, changes as deemed necessary, and hopefully those will be non-substantive so that, again, we can continue the process of moving it forward and providing it to the legislature by their due date, which is early January. So what we will be doing today is going through each section by section, and Dr. Felsenfeld will facilitate this review. I'll briefly discuss what is in the section, and then there will be opportunities to talk about those sections and approve them and then move forward. And at the very end, after Chapter 11, and brief discussion on their attachments, we will ask the board to make a motion to approve the sunset report and authorize myself, the executive officer, to take all necessary steps to finalize the report, make any non-substantive changes to the text, and again, take all necessary steps to submit the report to the California legislature. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Felsenfeld to take us through this process.
Thank you, Dr. Montez. We are going to start with Section 1, background and description of the board and the regulated profession. I will suggest that staff has done a phenomenal job of putting all this data together. I'm sure it took a long time. We'll give some kudos at the end for that as well. Is there anyone who has any question on the board about Section 1? Any concerns, comments, anything you don't understand or would like to see changed? I see nothing. So let us start with a motion to approve section 1 of the report. Dr. Chan is moving that. Dr. Yu, did I see your hand go up? Dr. Yu is going to second that. We are now ready for public comment on that motion. Excuse me 1 second. Sit down, Ms. Gallardi. Is there any other board member comment on that now that we have an actual motion? Seeing none. Public comment. Good morning. Dr. Gallardi, sorry, I did that last time too. The push on the bottom, it should turn
Got
green.
it. Thank you. Dr. Lori Gallardi representing FADE. So we do have a couple of comments, one substantive and one non-substantive for you to think about. So can I just reference the page number and then our recommendation? Is that
Please do.
agreeable?
That'd be easy.
Okay. So the first area is on page 45, section 1, and that has to do with the BLS provider.
Let us get there. It's a big report. Page 45. All right, we there? We good? All right.
Yeah. Can you tell specifically again, because I'm curious if our page numbers are lining up?
Oh, could be. It's also referenced in page 97, 98, section 3, and 144. It's just in reference to the BLS provider
Okay, thank you.
and the rulemaking that effective in January, then you're accepting other BLS providers, OSCE, PACE, CERP. However, in the dental assisting area, you still only accept the American Heart Association, the American Red Cross, or anything approved by the board. So we're just asking that in the area of dental assisting, it could be consistent with your continuing education regulations that you just passed to accept the other providers as well for anybody in dental assisting that's applying for the RDA or any of the permits that would need a BLS. The other section in that is page 46. This is more of a substantive change in reference to the ITR for the RDA-EF. So, and basically FADE's concern is that UOP did the pilot project and 3 other EF programs were approved under the original statutory provisions. So we're wondering if it's the intent of the board to require those previously approved programs to have to reapprove in order to continue instruction to receive the certificate. And also, we'd like to recommend that the board's intention to adopt the current ITR or to repeal the current ITR regulations as required, and then look at the programs that were previously approved to possibly adopt those regulations. I know your report states that you want to mirror the RDH regulations, but that may really impact the EF programs based on scope of practice. And then you already have 3 programs you've approved. The other in section 1 also, page 48. Again, just the, this is with the applicants for the OA and the DSA and the RDA. We know that you were trying to clarify it, but we're wondering if you'll also add some language for an RDA that wants to become an OA. They would be required to have the 8-hour infection control because there's no exemption for them. We also have concerns with the 5 years in between, because the BLS would be renewed every year or 2 years, so that would make it so it was not current. So we'd ask that perhaps you consider 2-year within taking the BLS, the DPA, and the infection control course. Those are our comments for section 1. Thank you.
So in response to these comments, they will require additional research. So I can't address them with the board right now, but I can certainly, we can, approve this section. And if these are non-substantive type of edits after consulting with our attorney and our regs attorney and staff, then we can decide whether or not we want to talk about that in November. And Tara, go ahead.
Well, I would also make a comment that as far as the comments regarding page 45 and the consolidated CE package on BLS, this is just a report of what the board has already done on regulations. So the board isn't making any changes to these CCR sections. It sounds like perhaps this is a request for future action, which we would not be including in legislation right now, since that's just a discussion of regulation. With respect to the EF programs in the UOP study, I think this was about ITR. The board doesn't have ITR regulations right now. It previously was working on some, but they were never made effective. So this proposal that the board is, this is a report about what the board did before. It hasn't actually made them effective. The board later in this report is seeking ITR statutes, which would ideally take the place of any regulations, because the ITR, this would just specify all of the course requirements. So if the legislature adds the ITR legislative proposal, some version of that, which we had worked on, staff worked on with CDA, the sponsor of AB 481, we could, take a look at that legislation at that time to see if it needs any additional tweaks, and working with the legislative committees on that issue. So I would not recommend any changes to the sunset review report on that right now, because the board doesn't have an ITR legislative proposal. It's just a discussion about it. And then as far as page 48, I think this was authorizing an RA to apply for an OA using infection control courses. That's probably the only one we could look at, but I would also, since we don't have any, first off, this proposal, I believe, went through the Dental Assisting Council first and then came to the board, and then the board approved the proposal. And during that process, there were multiple opportunities for public comment. So it's difficult now to, receive these comments and try to change something in this report when, we don't really have sufficient information to change this report. So perhaps this is another issue similar to the ITR to consider bringing forward to the legislative committees, and then, working on the sunset bill for, any additional tweaks to those provisions. But this report right now, I don't believe would need changes.
Solney, did you have a comment?
I did, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that section, and this is related to the consolidated CE. Section 1016.2 was amended to extend to applicants for registered dental assistant and extended functions, dental sedation assistant, and orthodontic assistant, so that they had different options for taking basic life support courses as well. So it does also extend to the applicants, not just licensees.
Okay.
Can I just ask for clarification?
Okay, one shot at each thing, but we'll give that to you. Go ahead, Ms.
So
Colon.
if it extends to applicants, then won't you be in conflict with what you're putting down? Because as we move forward in Section 11, you're recommending just the American Heart Association, the Red Cross, or anything approved as eligible by the board.
I would have to look at that section, but the regulations were amended to include applicants as well.
Yeah, that
As
was
part of
my
that bill.
point,
Okay.
Because it's not in there as you go on.
All right, thank you. All right, board members, we've heard public comment. Any other public comment on Section 1? Seeing none, we'll need a motion to approve Section 1. Somebody?
Pacheco, motion to approve Section
Moving that.
1.
Dr. Pacheco, Ms. Pacheco wants to be a doctor today. Ms. Pacheco, and a second by Dr. Chan. Thank you. If there's no further discussion, again, we've had our public comment. We're ready to vote. I guess the motion was up there. My apologies. Yes.
May I clarify who, because I have Chan and you made the initial motion and second.
Oh, if you saw that, I did
Yes.
not. I saw, that's fine.
Yes.
Chan and you. Okay,
Chan and
thank you. All right, so we are ready to take the vote on approving Section 1.
Okay, so there was Chan and seconded by who?
You.
You. Okay, the motion is to approve Section 1 of Sunset Review Report. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Forge, absent. Larine, aye. McKenzie, absent. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Molina?
Molina, aye.
Molina, aye. Olage? Absent. Pacheco?
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Thakur? Thakur, aye. You?
You, aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. We are going to move on now to Section 2, talking about fiscal and staff. Dr. Montez.
Yes, and thank you, Dr. Felsenfeld. Yes, Section 2 is fiscal and staff. I would like to point out that we are still waiting for data for fiscal year 2018-2019. Again, this was our year that was skipped. We will insert this data for the final report. So you will see some highlights throughout this section, and that's just pending information for you. And that is it for my summary.
And what we see in here is all data that is already in the books, on the books.
Yes. Again, much of what you're seeing in the first sections 1 through 9 is material that has been presented in prior board meetings and posted. There is some new information. But yes, this data has been vetted not only internally by the board staff, but also our staff worked with DCA Budget Office. Thank you.
Thank you. We are now looking for a motion to approve Section 2.
Chan, second.
Did you get those two? Because I didn't see them at all. Chan? Okay, and who is seconding? You're second. All right, Chan is the mover, and Dr. Larine is the seconder. Any further board discussion? Seeing none, is there any public discussion on the fiscal and staff section? Good morning. Becker.
Good morning. Sherry Becker, representing Sherry Becker. May I ask when we go through the sections to refer to a page number because I'm shuffling anyway, and it's difficult for me to discern the section. So thank you.
You may ask. We will try to give them to you. I'm shuffling as well because we have different documents with different page numbers. And I would ask that if we do discuss a section, if we know what the business and profession code numbers are, that may help us as well. We'll do that. Thank you, Ms. Becker. That's very good. All right, we are, absent any additional public comment, I think we're ready to approve Section 2. Dr. Larine, take the vote, please.
Okay, motion to approve Section 2, Sunset Review Report. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Forge? Absent. Larine? Yes. McKenzie? Absent. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Molina? Molina, aye. Molina, aye. Olage? Absent. Pacheco?
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Thakur? Thakur, aye. You?
You, aye.
You, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you, Dr. Larine. We now move on to Section 3, licensing programs. Dr. Montez, please.
Yes, again, licensing program. It is on page 66. And apologies, this is my actually first sunset process. I've always been part of DCA, and I usually get to grill the executive officers in preparation, and so now I'm on the other side. So this is new to me, so any feedback, feel free to assist.
She's
It's
wearing
all
Kevlar
new.
today. It's okay.
It's all new.
Go ahead.
Anyway, this will summarize again a lot of statistics and reports and various things that have been done with regard to our licensing programs. Thank you, Dr. Felsfeld.
All right. So, is there any board comment on section 3? Seeing none, we will need a motion. Let's. Who's going to do that? Dr. Molina is going to move to approve section 3. Thank you. And who's going to say? Oh, Dr. Mendoza. Dr. Mendoza. Dr. Who? And Angie. Medina, I know.
Medina.
I had all the M's last year or 2 years ago. All right, Dr. Medina. You're a doctor. Everyone's a doctor today because we didn't sleep in the hotel last night. I got to tell you, there were fire alarms and heaters are going off, and it was not easy. Never again. Okay? Let's move on. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further board member discussion? Seeing none. Is there public discussion on section 3 licensing? Seeing none, we are ready to vote. Dr. Lorin.
Chan, I'm sorry, motion to approve Section 3, Sunset Review Report, Chan.
Chan, aye.
Chan, I. Felsenfeld.
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, I. Forge. Absent Larin, I. McKenzie. Absent Medina.
Medina, aye.
Medina, I. Molina. Molina, I. Olage. Absent Pacheco.
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, I. Thakur. Thakur, I. You.
You, aye.
Aye, motion passes.
Thank you. We're now going to move to section 4, the enforcement program. Dr. Montez.
Good morning again. So this again summarizes the statistics found across our enforcement programs, starting with complaints and going through disciplinary action. We do have some data. Oh, sorry. This is on page 101. 101 starts on 101. On page 117, we do have some pending fiscal data that will be filled in. Again, it's for fiscal year 2018 to 19. And that is the summary. Thank you.
You said 117 on the pending data?
Yes, page 117.
All right. Is there any board member discussion on this section? Seeing none, we would like a motion to approve the section. I'll do that one. I'd like to move to approve section 4 with Dr. Yu coming in right behind me with the second. So we now have that. Any further board member discussion? Is there any public discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. Dr. Lorin.
Okay. A motion to approve Section 4, Sunset Review Report, Chan.
Chan, aye.
Chan, I. Felsenfeld.
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, I. Forge. Absent Larin, I. McKenzie. Absent Medina.
Medina, aye.
Medina, I. Molina. Molina, I. Olage. Absent Pacheco.
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, I. Thakur. Thakur, I. You.
You, aye.
You, I. Motion passes.
Thank you, Dr. Lorin. Section 5, Public Information Policies. Dr. Montez.
A very small section here. It starts on page 117. And again, goes over webcasting, which we have done, and as well as complying with all of our reporting processes with Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. Thank you.
Is there any board member discussion on Section 5? Seeing none, who would like to make a motion this time? All right, Dr. Thakur is going to move that we approve Section 5 for transmission. And Dr. Molina will second that. Thank you. Any further board discussion on the motion? Is there any public comment on the motion? Seeing none, Dr. Lorin.
Yes, motion to approve Section 5, Sunset Review Report, Chan.
Chan, aye.
Chan, I. Felsenfeld.
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, I. Forge. Absent Larin, I. McKenzie. Absent Medina.
Medina, aye.
Medina, I. Molina.
Molina, aye.
Molina, I. Olage. Absent Pacheco.
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, I. Thakur. Thakur, I. You, I.
You, aye.
You, I. Motion passes.
Thank you. We're going to now move on to Section 6, Online Practice Issues, page 118, or thereabouts.
Page 119, and again, another brief section simply addressing online practice issues. Thank you.
Any board member concerns or discussion about this section? Seeing none, we'll need another motion. Dr. Chan is going to move, and Dr. Lorin is going to second. Thank you very much to approve the section where the motion is. You'll read it to us as you take the vote, Dr. Lorin. Before that, any further board discussion? Seeing none, any public discussion, public comment? Seeing none, Dr. Lorin, please read the motion and we'll take the vote.
Motion to approve Section 6 Sunset Review Report. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Forge, absent. Larin, aye. McKenzie, absent. Medina?
Medina, I.
Medina, aye. Molina?
Molina, aye.
Molina, aye. Olage, absent. Pacheco?
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Thakur? Thakur, aye. You?
You, aye.
You, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you, Dr. Lorin. Section 7, Workforce Development and Job Creation. In my copy, it's 120, but in yours is 121 probably.
Yes,
Okay.
page 121 if you have a paper copy. Again, this goes over workforce development and job creation. It talks about various data that is collected that we've been required to collect, and then it also highlights our Access to Care Committee, which was revised in the work that's being done there. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any board member discussion about the data in the workforce development and job creation section? I see none. So who would like to make the motion? Dr. Molina? Everyone's going to get a motion today. It's all good. Goes in the record. And who is going to second that? Dr. Yu. All right. And is there further board member discussion on the motion itself? No. Is there any public comment on the motion? Someone's getting up and leaving. Staff. All right. No, there's no comment. We're ready to take the vote. Dr. Lorin.
Thank you. The motion is to approve Section 7 Sunset Review Report. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Forge, absent. Larin, aye. McKenzie, absent. Medina?
Medina, I.
Medina, aye. Molina?
Molina, aye.
Molina, aye. Olage, absent. Pacheco?
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Thakur? Thakur, aye. You?
You, aye.
You, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you, Dr. Lorin. Let's move to Section 8, Current Issues, somewhere in the neighborhood of page 125 or 6.
Correct. I've got 126 on the paper copy, and these are current issues that the legislature typically likes to check in with all of the DCA boards and bureaus, discussing BREEZE, which has been a hot topic for a number of years. We also have in here reference to our report on pediatric deaths. It's summarized again, and this is something that is posted online. And again, it's a rather brief section. Thank you.
Is there any board member discussion about the contents of this section? Seeing none, Pacheco is going to make a motion to approve Section 8, and Medina is going to second that. Thank you. Is there any further board member discussion on the motion itself? Seeing none, is there any public comment on Section 8? Seeing none, Dr. Lorin, you're on a tear, woman. Keep going.
The motion is to accept Section 8 Sunset Review Report. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Forge, absent. Larin, aye. McKenzie, absent. Medina?
Medina, I.
Medina, aye. Molina?
Molina, aye.
Molina, aye. Olage, absent. Pacheco?
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Thakur? Thakur, aye. And you?
You, aye.
You, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you, Dr. Lorin. Section 9, Board Actions and Responses to COVID-19, Special Circumstances.
And this is starting on page 131 of the paper copy. And again, it addresses what the board did in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I would just, again, like to point out, this was all before my time. And you can see that the board was extremely active in terms of continuing education waiver, the vaccine statutes, and the various communications. So it was a very responsive board in terms of the action taken to the pandemic and lessons learned. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any board member discussion about the report or the contents? I see none, so I'm going to make a motion on this one. I'd like to move that we approve Section 9 as part of our Sunset Report, and Dr. Molina has seconded that. Is there any board member discussion on the actual resolution? Seeing none, is there any public comment on this section? Seeing none. All right, Dr. Lorin, let's go.
The motion is to approve Section 9 Sunset Review Report. Chan?
Chan, I.
Chan, I. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, I. Forge, absent. Larin, I. McKenzie, absent. Medina?
Medina, I.
Medina, I. Molina?
Molina, I.
Molina, I. Olage, absent. Pacheco?
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, I. Thakur?
Thakur, I.
Thakur, I. You?
You, I.
You, I. Motion passes.
Thank you, Dr. Yu. Thank you, Dr. Lorin. We are now up to Section 10, and Dr. Montez is going to give you a little introduction to Section 10.
Section 10 starts on page 134 of the paper copy, and I want to clarify, now we're kind of really getting into the heart of potential discussion. Not that we didn't anticipate discussion on the prior sections, but again, a lot of that was update information. Section 10 is board action and response to prior sunset issues. So these are what was brought to the board's attention and asked that some action be considered. The legislature was looking to see whether or not the board was going to be responsive. And so as you go through this chapter, you'll see the issues were identified, some background, and the committee, that's the legislative committee's recommendation, and then what the board did in response to that recommendation. And so again, I think and I hope you will be pleased to see that the board management and prior administration really tackled a lot of what was asked of them. And that is what you will find again in Section 10. Thank you.
Is there any board member discussion of the items in Section 10? I see none. What, Dr. Montez?
And I should clarify, not only prior administration and board staff, but the board, your members as well. You did this too, so thank you.
Some of us weren't here then. Okay, any discussion? If there's no discussion, we'll need a motion to approve. Dr. Chan, we're going to have that, and Dr. Thakur is going to second it. Any further board discussion on the actual resolution? Seeing none, public comment.
Dr. Lori Glardy representing FADE. Section 10, issue number 14 for technical cleanup. I'm wondering if there's any way under technical cleanup that you could replace the word film with image receptor for sections 1014.1 and anything having to do with radiation safety. Since we're still obligated, anybody teaching in the dental assisting program or a course provider, to use film fixer, expose the patient to more. So by using the word image receptor, we hope that that could include digital. Also, to replace dental material requirements for the RDA-EF, which includes amalgam, to just contemporary materials. So that would be under the doctor's supervision. And last but not least, to change all language from the word dental auxiliary to dental assisting, since we only have dental assisting that the board is monitoring at this point in time.
Okay, I'm going to try and clarify this, and let's see, legal counsel, if I do this correctly. So this is prior issues. So I think what we're hearing is in chapter 11, or yes, when we get to 11 and we move forward in the process and we have technical cleanup, these are suggestions that you would like to be considered. Got it.
This
Am
is
I
what
correct?
was done.
This would be.
Yeah, this is what was done in the past, and your comments are germane, and they will be.
Yeah. So I would ask we could be provided with the written comments, and that would be helpful. Yeah. Thank you.
We can send this to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Glardy. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I think we're ready to vote, Dr. Lorin, on Section 10.
Okay, the motion is to approve Section 10 Sunset Review Report. Chan?
Chan, I.
Chan, I. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, I. Forge, absent. Larin, I. McKenzie, absent. Medina?
Medina, I.
Medina, I. Molina?
Molina, I.
Molina, I. Olage, absent. Pacheco?
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, I. Thakur?
Thakur, I.
Thakur, I. And you?
You, I.
You, I. Motion passes.
I thank you, Dr. Lorin. Section 11 is new issues, and Dr. Montez, I think, is going to give us an explanation of how we got to this one. So go ahead, Dr. Montez. And we're on page 142 or 143, whether you're electronic or printed.
Correct. Okay, so this is the section where the various legislative proposals that have been discussed throughout the year are now being included in the report to then hopefully move forward and have them addressed through the sunset process. And these are various issues, again, that have been, and some of them were actually even prior to this past year, although the majority of them were. So again, you can pat yourselves on the back and look at all the hard work that was done over this past year. Thanks staff as well. So it is divided up into various sections where it's got some new issues. There's different titles, so to speak. You will notice if you go to section or page 151 in the paper copy, that's where we've got some new issues that were not discussed previously in the report. And that's where we talk about the interim therapeutic restoration and radiograph. We also have, and that's issue 15. And then also to bring to your attention, which we have not talked about, but I did include in the report for consideration, was 16, new issue 16. And we want to bring to the attention to the legislature that we need additional staff to really manage the board's cost recovery program. We have fines, citations, things that we're having difficulty recovering, and we would like to be able to have a position to work with the enforcement program. Typically, we don't ask for staff in the sunset process, I've been told, but we felt that we would still move forward with this because we really need the legislature to understand the importance, well, to reinforce the importance of the enforcement program. And as we have become staffed up, we are still learning, there's gaps. You know, even with a full staff, we still have gaps in services that we need to be provided. New issue 17, and we can certainly address these each if you'd like, Dr. Felsenfeld, but I'm just quick summary. Unlicensed practice, we've had concerns with unlicensed practice, and so we are looking at here again some clarifying language to address our enforcement actions and again to protect consumers. And then mental health continuing education is something that we would like to pursue to allow our licensees to receive credit for mental health condition courses that help them be a better professional, you know, that would help them do their services, perform their services better. And this is something that we have alluded to in other discussions. Number 4, new issues raised by the committee. That is purposely blank because we haven't gotten anything from the legislative committee yet. So that's why that piece isn't, and that's part of how the process unfolds. So eventually we'll get some issues raised and we will address that. But the rest of the chapter, again, or section, I should say, does reference legislative proposals that have been discussed. So I will turn it back over to Dr. Felsenfeld, and if he wants to go issue by issue, or if he wants to just ask if there are questions,
why don't we start and see if there are questions?
Choice.
If it gets too confusing, we can slow down and do it an issue by issue. Is there any board member concerns or questions about what you see in Section 11 representing what we've done in the past year, or years actually, and also some of the thoughts that we have for the future? I'm seeing Dr. Chan going, I'm fine. Are we seeing any concerns? If not, why don't we have a resolution to approve this by someone? Dr. Medina? Got your name right. We're going to call you doctor now. All right, Ms. Medina. And seconded by Dr. Lorin. All right. Is there any board member discussion about the resolution before you? Motion. Same. Equal weight. I'll say motion, though, because you're right. Okay, motion. My old life. Is there any public comment on any of this? Okay, we have several people coming up. Ms. Okai? Introduce yourself anyway.
Hello. And just to confirm, we're going by the whole section, not issue by issue?
Say that again?
The whole section 11 right now. Okay.
You can pick anything you like.
Okay, I'll try to speak fast.
Talk slowly so we can understand and hear you. Okay?
So I'm Tuka Zokai from the California Dental Association. I wanted to speak on issue number 1. CDA supports the dental board's recommendation to require unlicensed dental assistants to complete an 8-hour board-approved infection control course prior to performing any basic supportive dental procedures involving potential exposure to blood, saliva, or potentially infectious materials. CDA also respectfully asks that the board's continued support for an 8-hour didactic course option to be established. This was similar to what was in AB 481, which the board supported, to be reflected in this proposal so that the course format will be accessible to all regions of the state and allow for the state an immediate onboarding of new dental team staff. I have more issues. Should I keep going?
Well, all right. Why don't we look at issue number 1 first? Because if this is something that we are comfortable putting in, then we're going to have to amend this part of it, and then we'll take the whole thing. That's a good thing.
Thank you.
Yes.
So point of clarification, Tara, you can correct me. Are we amending anything, or are we going to work with the legislative staffers on how we may want to incorporate things such as components of 481?
Thanks.
What's the best way to do this, what you're asking?
So, and I think this also goes for the public comment that the FADE representative made on technical cleanup. So new issues that, or requests for revisions to the board's previously approved legislative proposals, those need to be vetted by the board. There's no language before them today, really, other than the sunset review report. So what the board could do, and I think for all dental assisting issues, those are going to have to be reviewed by the Dental Assisting Council first, and then submitted to the board for approval, and then for all issues, including dentist issues, the board would need to approve a recommendation to the legislature to include in the sunset bill. So that's a whole process. We can begin that in November for our issues that are identifiable, that the executive officer and the DAC chair are made aware of, and we can describe them effectively to properly publicly notice them as an agenda item. All of that is possible to submit, get board approval on legislative proposals. Alternatively, the stakeholders can go to the legislature and the legislative committees and request revisions to the board sunset bill once that is introduced, potentially in January or February. And then the board can work on those amendments or potential revisions through that legislative process. So that's just another way to do it. So I think that if the stakeholders are requesting Dental Assisting Council action for board approval on legislative amendments, those requests need to be submitted to the executive officer in writing so that we can properly prepare for the November DAC meeting. And then potentially the board would maybe get a chance to look at that. What is it, February? So that's what I'm saying as far as this report goes right now. If there's any tweaks to the actual language of the report, we can take a look at that. But as far as new legislative concepts or proposals to amend what the board has already approved, the board would need to do that at a different meeting where the language is properly noticed to the public.
That's how we got to this part to begin with. So, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for that. I do have an additional comment. And we'll be
section,
submitting written.
On a different section or same section?
Same section, different issue 4.
Okay, tell us. The microphone is still yours.
Okay. So the 1635.5 legislative proposal that's in the section 11, it's a legislative proposal to add a requirement for those seeking work credit through a contractual agreement in order to teach and/or practice dentistry to submit written documentation verifying compliance with the requirement. But the proposed amendment does not consider use of a license beyond clinical practice. A dental license has non-clinical applications as well that should be considered for licensure by credential, and this increases portability for public health dental professionals that require a dental license. So CDA urges the dental board to consider inclusion of a licensure by credential with non-clinical setting experience.
This would probably fall under the same.
Yep.
This would fall under the same kind of a thing. This sounds like a good idea. Bring it to us officially, and we'll
Great.
Put it around and see how it goes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Toke. Dr. Gallardi?
Dr. Gallardi representing FADE. I just have a point of clarification on your new issue number 3, RDH licensure as an RDA and permitted duties. That first paragraph, the last sentence, current statute also lacks clarity about when an RDA may perform certain additional duties. Is that supposed to be RDH?
It should well be. Well, maybe not. Could be both.
I believe it is RDH because it's RDH licensure as an RDA and permitted duties, but we will verify.
Yeah, without seeing the legislative proposal, we would have to pull that up. And I do believe that the RDH proposal revises RDA statutes. And so I do believe that we were making some tweaks to the RDA provisions. And I think it's probably in terms of effective dates, grandfathering clauses for RDAs, but without seeing the actual legislative proposal, it's hard to make any tweak to that right now.
Okay.
It's noted. It'll be checked. Thank you.
Welcome back.
Hello, Melody Randolph, representing the California Association of Dental Assisting Teachers. Just a question note on page 144, new issue number 1, third paragraph. Yeah, on the infection control issue. I'm not sure the wording there is accurate as far as an assistant third line who has been employed even intermittently for a year with one employer. I haven't heard those words before in reference to this infection control requirement. So I'd request a review of that, as well as that this recommendation of the infection control being required prior to potential exposure was approved at the February 2023 meeting. I don't remember that, and I know we go to all the meetings, so if you could just double check that that's accurate. Thank you.
I personally do remember it, but let's go back and check it officially. All right. No, we had a lot of discussion about that. Okay. Is there any other public comment on the motion to approve Section 11? Seeing none, Dr. Lorin.
Okay, motion is to approve Section 11 Sunset Review Report. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Aye. Felsenfeld.
Felsenfeld, aye. Forge, absent. Larin, aye. McKenzie, absent. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Molina?
Molina, aye.
Molina, aye. Olage, absent. Pacheco?
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Thakur? Thakur, aye. Thakur, aye. You?
You, aye.
You, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you, Dr. Lorin. This completes our review of the 11 sections of the report. And is there a general comment by the board relative to this? Because otherwise I'm going to make a motion. Seeing none, I'd like to move that we approve a motion to approve the 2023 Sunset Review Report as and direct the executive officer to take all steps necessary to formalize and submit the Sunset Review Report to the appropriate legislative committees, and authorize the executive officer to correct any factual inconsistencies and make any technical or non-substantive changes to the Sunset Review Report.
You second.
Thank you, Dr. Yu. We have a second to that. Is there any board discussion about this, this motion? Dr. Chan?
Just a commentary. This is my third one that I've gone through, and this is the best written one I've seen.
Thank you. We'll comment on that in just a moment as well. All right. Any other comment by the board? Is there any public comment on the motion? Seeing none, Dr. Loren,
Okay,
we'll do the honors.
Motion to approve the motion as stated by Dr. Felsenfeld. Chan?
Chan, aye.
Chan, aye. Felsenfeld?
Felsenfeld, aye.
Felsenfeld, aye. Forge, absent. Larin, aye. McKenzie, absent. Medina?
Medina, aye.
Medina, aye. Molina? Molina, aye. Olage, absent. Pacheco?
Pacheco, aye.
Pacheco, aye. Thakur? Thakur, aye. Yu?
You aye.
Yu, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you, Dr. Loren. This brings us to the end of the meeting. Did you want to say something? Dr. Montez wanted to say something. I would like to say something before we finish. Go ahead.
Yeah, so again, I would just really like to acknowledge our staff, dental board staff, because again, as they were putting together this information for this report, they also were doing their daily duties of processing applications, investigating cases and complaints and so forth. So this was, definitely an extra project. And Mr. Bruggeman, who worked very closely with Mr. Labette, who is our editor. He also works in the anesthesia unit. So when you speak to it being well written, it's because we had our own in-house editor and our legislative specialist working very closely with all of our managers and our staff to put this together. So again, if you look through it, a lot has been done over the last 4 years, and there's much, much more to do. And I just would encourage all of our stakeholders to please submit written comments because we are very eager to start 2024 with more things to do and actions to be taken. We do have our November board meeting. It is a Wednesday, Thursday, and it is back over at HQ2, so we don't get confused. We are going back to the other building, and it will be webcast, so there will be the option of participating virtually, and it likely will be a somewhat briefer meeting because we're kind of winding things down. But again, we will be preparing for 2024 and more to come on that. I won't go into the agenda yet because it hasn't been finalized, but we do have some important decisions to make in November to prepare for 2024. So I just would like to thank the board members for their support and our stakeholders and staff. Thank you.
And before we close, I was going to say something like that, but it was way more than I understand. But I did want to say that if you really read through the 150 pages as I did, there was a lot of information in there, and our staff worked extremely hard to do that. And I'm always thanking everybody, and you guys did a good job today. We all did this, but this staff has really put it on the last couple of months putting this together. So with that, we are adjourned.